Hello and welcome. My name is Rui Barbosa and I'm a developer advocate for OutSystems. Today, we are going to build a mobile application using the platform. But before we start, let me just give you a little bit of context of what is OutSystems. With OutSystems, you can build a web and mobile application with the front end done in React.js and the back end done in C#, but with using the same visual development and tool. As a platform, OutSystems will also help you with managing the application lifecycle, the code lifecycle, and it will also allow you to manage the development environment. Because OutSystems uses standard technologies, it's also really easy to bring those technologies back into the platform, which allows the developer to never be stuck. So if you need a specific library in JavaScript or something that can be done in C#, it's fairly easy to bring those functionalities back into the platform. So it doesn't really matter if you are a front-end developer, a back-end developer, or a full-stack developer. There is something for everyone with OutSystems. But you know what? Let's get started and build something with using the platform. So let me just minimize this and bring my development environment into focus. Okay, so how do I get started? Let's do a new application. Okay, we're going to select create an application from scratch. And we are going to create a phone application. I'm going to name it something like AWS Prime Movie. And let me select just an icon so that it shows well on the mobile phone. So now I'm pressing create app, and I'm going to create the first module for this application. Now, the use case that we're going to do today is we're going to create some kind of client application for a streaming service, right? So something where the user can check out what movies are available, see a few details of the movie, and then actually play the movie. For that, I'm actually using the movie database API, which is very rich and has a lot of information about the movies. So I'm just going to go here into the movies, and I'm particularly interested in this now playing entry point, right? So this will represent the movies that are now in theaters. But how do I consume this API on the platform? I am going to grab the API entry point, and I'm just going to go here into the logic area and go into the REST and just say consume REST API. I just want to consume one, so I'm going to do continue here. And I'm going to paste the URL over here. I do need to change these URLs and make them official parameters. So let's just do that. So I am going to need my API key, okay, API key. I'm going to ignore the language and the locale, but I do need to work with a page parameter because this API only outputs one page at a time. So once I do this, I can actually go in here and test the call to the API. So let's do that. Let me grab my API key. Okay, here we go. And request the first page and click this test button. This will make the request to the server, and there we go. Here is the response. So once I do that, I can just copy the response to the response body, and the platform will take care of all the JSON parsing for me, right? So if I just click finish, you can see here that it created the necessary parameters for the URL and also parsed the response into a structure that can be easily handled within OutSystems. I am just going to change this a little bit. So the page will actually be an integer, and yes, it is mandatory. And the API key is a text, but yes, it is mandatory too. Okay, so now we are actually ready to start creating a screen. Let me go back here and take a look at the output, have the output of the API over here. All right, so let's create a new screen. I'm just going to make a new screen from scratch. I'm just going to call it home, create screen. And as you can see, this screen does have a little bit of structure to represent a traditional mobile application. So I'm going to give it a title. I'm just going to call it Movies Now Playing, okay? And I need to fetch the data, right? So I need to go back and grab that and call that API. So I'm just going to say fetch data from other sources. Let me put this a little bit bigger so we can see better. And now I can just call that API directly from here. Now it's going to require an API key and a page, correct? So I don't want to keep hard coding the API everywhere. So I'm just going to create this site property that then I can change via the server management. So I'm just going to call it API key. And I'm just going to put the default development value. Okay, there we go. And be done with that. So that means that now back into my method call, I can just use the site.api key, and it will pick the information from the environment server. Okay, the other thing that I need is a page. So I am just going to create a local variable called page. I'm going to say that this variable is an integer, okay? And the default value is 1. And I'm also going to use it here. So I'm just going to go page. And the API call is pretty much done. The last step is to output all this information back into the client side, back into my React.js application. So I've got this output variable here. So I'm just going to call it movie list. And I want this movie list to be the exact same type as the structure that gets output from the API, right? So if I go here, you can see that the response is a get now playing response. So I'm going to make this movie list to be exactly the same type, the get now playing response. And as you can see, it now has the exact same structure. So finally, I can just go in here, right? And say that whatever I want to see on my screen is whatever it's coming from the API. Okay. Now, I want to create a screen list, right? I want to show the movies, posters. I don't want to put the name, the title of the movie, and so on. I want just to show the images. And if we take a look at our API, you see that they have this poster path over here, right? But this is not a complete URL. However, if we go here into the configuration, they actually explain to you where is this information coming from, okay? So I just need to process the data a little bit. So I'm just going to do this. For each movie that it's coming out of the API, okay, I am just going to complete the URL of the poster path, right? So the get now playing poster path variable, there we go, current and poster path, there it is, right? I'm just going to complete this with the fully qualified URL, all right? So I'm gonna paste this over here. I need to grab the server entry point over here. And as you can see, they actually have a code representing the different sizes of the pages, right? So just going to place this over here and complete with the URL. So now I'm actually ready to build the list. So I'm going to go back to my home screen. I'm going to drop a list widget over here and bind this to the results that I'm getting from the server-side fetch. And now I want to have, let's put here a div, a container, and inside the container, I want to grab an image. So I'm going to drop the image over here, okay? And I need to give it a source for the image, right? So this image could be a resource of this application. It is not. It could also be a binary data, which is not, but it is an external URL. So I'm just going to say, grab this data from an external URL, and the external URL is obviously the poster path. Also, I want to make this in such a way that displays 4 movies in the same row. So I'm just going to play here a little bit with the container formatting. As you can see, everything in the screen is divided into 12 columns. So it makes it really easy. If I say that this container is 3 columns, then it will display 4 items, right? So for a little bit of style, I'm just going to add a small right margin to this. And we are actually ready to do a first test with the application and see how this thing is going. I clicked this one-click publishing, and this is where all the magic is happening, right? So what is going on? It's taking this visual development model that you've just seen. It's sending it to the server, doing the code check-in, and eventually a merge and all that management. It's then extracting the standard languages, right? So it's extracting the JavaScript and the CSS and the HTML and the C# and whatnot. It's compiling it, what needs to be compiled, obviously, and it's deploying it to the server and making it available for us to test. So now I can just open this application on my browser, and there you go. We have a first view of all the movies that are now playing on theaters. Okay, but now I do need to make some changes to this, right? So as you can see, I only have the first page because this API only outputs 20 movies at a time, and it actually is the number of the movies that I have on the first page. So I need to find a way to identify when the user is scrolling through the app to grab the next page. So let's do that. So over here, I am going to select my list, and as you can see, it exposes an event called onScrollEnding, right? So I need to do a little bit of code here. So I'm just going to say, create a new infinite scroll action. Okay, let's take a look. So it created this method, right? And this is the way, this is how we code in the platform. So what is this thing doing? It created these max records and made it 20. And the logic behind this is this. Has the data fetch finished, right? So if it is finished, it can move forward. Then it's going to ask, do I have anything else to fetch? Is there more data that I can go and fetch? And finally, if that is true, it is incrementing the max records to say, okay, I need to grab the next set of data, okay? So we can play exactly the same method, but using the page. So over here, I'm just going to increment the page. So I'm gonna say page equals page plus 1. And over here, I do need to have a different condition for this. So the length of the results outputted by the API, it's 20 or less. So it is interesting to, if I could have here, the total number of records that the API has available, right? And if we look at it, it's exactly what it says over here, right? So the API outputs the total results that the initial query can output. So we're going to do this. So this essentially takes care of the fetch me the next page. Whenever I scroll one more, it will fetch me the next page. Now, the problem is that on the list, I'm using directly the data coming from the data action, right? So I need to create a local variable, which I'm just going to call movies. And again, I want the type of data to be exactly the same as the results. In this case, it's a result list item, right? So I'm just going to go here and say, I want a list of the type result item. There we go. So now they are exactly the same. So whenever the data action fetches another set of data, I need to transfer those page results into this bigger movie list, right? So over here, you can see that I do have the onAfterFetch event. So I'm just going to create a little bit of code and say, well, whenever there is another fetch, what I need to do is append the list, the output that I get from the API into this bigger list over here. So movies and coming from the results of the API. Now, the last thing I need to do is just come over here and change the bindings of the list and the binding of the image, right? So now the list shouldn't get the results from the data fetch directly, it should get it from the local variable. And also the URL from the poster path should be coming again from the movies variable. So let's take a look and see. So republishing our application, and once this is done, we can just go in here, refresh. And as you can see, I should now have a fully scrollable list of movies. Okay, so next, let's grab some movie details to give the user, a little bit of context about the movie. Let's create a new application. Again, a new application, a new screen. I am just going to call this one details. And again, I need to grab some data. Now, I don't want to go in and do that tedious process of mapping the APIs again. So I am going to use another module of code that I have here, where I already mapped the entire API for the movie database, right? So I'm going to select this module here, the movie database API, and I'm just going to select everything. So you see here, all the API is already mapped and properly exposed. Here we go. Let's click apply. And again, for the detail, I'm going to say fetch data from other sources, okay? And this time, instead of mapping it, I am going to go here to my service actions. You can see the module over here, and I'm going to ask for the movie details, okay? Now, this API, again, needs some stuff. The API key is obviously site API key. The movie ID, I need to pass from when the user clicks, right? So let me create an input parameter called movie ID, okay? And it's going to be a long integer. So now I can use it over here. And for the site backdrop and the poster size, those are those little codes that we saw before, and I already have them here. The poster, it's a slightly wider image, so it's going to make a nice background. And the size of the poster is, I'm just going to use the same that I did before, okay? Now, the next step is to, let's just call this movie, okay, movie. And I want this to be, again, the same type as the movie details over here, right? So if we look at the response, we can see that it's a movie detail. So actually, let's change this to movie detail. If I could type movie detail, there we go. And because the name of the variable is the same name of the data structure, it kind of automatically picked up that structure. So now all I need to do is assign the variable movie detail, not what I wanted to do, assign the variable movie detail, here we go, movie detail, and assign it to the output of the response coming from the API. All right. So let's build the screen a little bit, right? I want to display the title of the movie up there on the title of the page. So we're just going to drag and drop this over here. And so far, we've been using some of these widgets. I'm going to use one that is a card. I just want to have a little bit more flair over here. This card widget, again, it's HTML, CSS, and JavaScript. I don't think this even has JavaScript, it's just CSS. So it's a prepackaged open source widget. So you can change it, make it your own, do whatever. But this one has kind of two areas, right? A content and a background image. So again, I'm going to grab an image and drop it into the background image over here and point this image again as a local URL, but this time I'm going to point it to the backdrop path, right? So this will allow me to make some content and have that content overlaid on top of that image. Now, for the content, I want to have some structure, and instead of playing with the size of the divs, we already have some prepackaged behavior here, right? So I'm going to use this 2 columns medium left. So there's a left column and a right column. On the left column, I am going to put again an image, which I will repeat the poster. Okay, so that the user does have a visual cue. Where is the poster over here? The user does have a visual cue from what he has clicked on the first list and now what he's seeing. Okay, and as for the second column, I'm just going to drop a bunch of divs and populate this with information about the movie. So I'm going to drop 4 divs over here. On the first one, I want the title again, right? So let me go here, movie detail, title. I'm going to drop this over here. On the second one, I want to see what type of movie that is and that it's stored over here under the genres. And you can see that this is a list, right? So I need to use the list widget again, right? Bind it to, brought a little bit more stuff, but I want to bind it to the genres list. And let me clean this up. Let me clean this up a little bit and put here an expression that I'm going to point to the description or the name of the genres. Okay, so genres, I'm going to point it over here to the name. There we go. And as you can see, it's now just like on the home screen, displaying it horizontally. I am going to just add a little bit of styling here again and put some margin over here with the 5 pixels. Now, the next one, I just want to display the overview of the movie. Okay. And the next one, I want to display kind of the rating of the movie, how popular that movie is. And for that, I'm going to just use an icon to give a clue to the user what this is. And I want to use an open star. I want it to be the normal font size. And now I can grab the vote average and drop it over here. Of course, you know, as visually in terms of development at design time, I don't want this to display vote average. I'm just going to put something here so I get a visual cue of what it is. And because this was a decimal, it is automatically formatting with 2 decimal with 2 decimals, but I only want 1. Okay, now for some styling. I'm going to hard code a few things over here. I mean, I don't mean hard code, I mean some inline styling. But I am going to use this style editor that we have over here, okay? So for the first one, I actually want this to be a little bigger, okay, title. For the second div, I want it to be actually a little smaller. So let's put it over here. And for this one, I just want a little bit of spacing relative to the last one. And for the rating, I want it to be slightly bigger and aligned to the right. Now, all of this that I'm doing is actually being translated directly into pure CSS. I just happen to know, as a developer, I'm not very comfortable with CSS, but I can use these styles and actually see what CSS is being applied. However, For the CSS specialists out there, we can actually build a proper class, right? So I'm just going to build quickly a simple class. I'm going to call it movie poster, okay? And I'm going to build an empty class for now. And I'm going to format this and say that this image should be using the movie poster. Oh, I call it Potter. Seriously? Movie poster class, okay? And now I'm going to, again, use the styling, but you can type. I mean, you can, if you want to change, right? You have all the bells and whistles that are complete. But I'm just going to say, you know what? I want a background, not a background. I want a 2-pixel borderline in white, and I want the corners to be 5 pixels. And as you can see that I was doing this, this was actually changing in real time, over here, right? So this is the way that you can apply the classes, CSS classes, and you can use all the CSS that you want within your applications. All right, so now I just need to go back to the home, right? And link one thing to the other, right? So let's go into the home. Let's select an image and create a link between the image. So when the user clicks the image, and actually send it to the detail, okay? And I need to pass the movie ID as a parameter, right? So I need to grab the movie ID. Where is it? Let me just open this current ID. There we go. So I just need to pass the movie's ID over here. So let's check and see if this is working. Again, we are going to do a one-click publish. And once that is done, I can just go in and refresh my application. There we go. Refresh my application. All right, and again, we have the list. And now if I click on a movie, it picks up the movie details. All right, folks. So the third step is to allow the user to actually play the movie. Let's start by doing another screen. So I'm just going to create a specific screen to play the movie. I'm just going to call it player. And what we are going to use is this HTML5 video player. There we go. And this HTML5 video player requires this video URL so it can stream from a URL location. Now, where are we going to store all of these movies? We looked at Amazon S3, and that's a great choice to store large quantities and big files, right? So we do have some movies over here, but we need to find a way to translate between the movie ID and the credentials of every one of these objects that are stored on Amazon S3. So let's do just that. I'm going to create a fetch data from another source. Okay. And I already created that method, which is called movie by ID, that takes the movie ID and outputs the AWS credentials, the bucket name, and the key. So these are all the information that I need to access these objects over here. So the next step is to use our component for Amazon S3. And I'm particularly interested in this method over here, object get pre-signed URL. This will take the AWS credentials, the bucket name, and the key, and output an authenticated URL that can be played using a video streamer. So this is exactly what we need. Let's click apply. And now let's use that method right over here, right? So it's asking me for the AWS credentials, which is coming from the above method. Of course, I want to use HTTPS and the bucket name and the key for the movie. Now, I also need this expires in because this authenticated URL does not last forever. So let's just create an input parameter here called runtime, which will represent the runtime of the movie. Let's change it to an integer, and back over here, I can just say, I want to use runtime plus, let's say 60 minutes, just in case the user pauses the movie. Finally, I can now return this URL into my screen. So I'm just going to create that variable called URL and assign it to the value that it's coming from the get pre-signed URL. There we go. Okay, back to our screen. I can now go over here and just say, use the URL from the data action. Now there's a few more things that I want to pass in here. For example, the poster URL, which, so before the movie starts or when this is displayed, it has the capability to display an image. So let's use the backdrop URL that we had on the previous screen so that the user has a visual cue of what he is doing. So let's just create another input parameter. I'm going to call it backdrop URL and use it over here. I also want to give the user full control of the player, and I want the movie to start playing automatically. Okay. Finally, I'm going to ask for the title of the movie and use it here on the title of the page. All right. Now, all we need to do is go back to the detail and find a way to link both of these screens together. I'm just going to use a button over here on the header. I'm going to call this button something like watch now. Okay. And I'm going to make it big as I can and link it to the player. And then now I need to pass all the rest of the information, right? So I need the runtime of the movie. I need the backdrop path for the URL, and I need the title of the movie. I'm still missing something. What did I forget? Oh, I need to obviously pass the movie ID into my function, which I completely forgot. There we go. All right, so back to our player, and let's try this. Let's see if this is working. So clicking the on-click publish, and once this is available, we can refresh our application and see this working. There we go, application refreshed. Let's click the same movie and click watch now. And we should be able to see a movie playing.
In today's
there we go.
world, we are currently in a motion
this is Christiana,
where we
another
become
developer advocate in one of our videos. All right, let's try another one. So go back. Let's see this one, for example. Click watch now.
AWS has a vast catalog of services.
Another video. So folks, that's it for the application. Let me just go back here to my presentation for some closing thoughts. If you are curious about OutSystems and you would like to try it, please go to outsystems.com/innovate, where you can register and have your own personal environment. Now, this personal environment, it's not a time trial or 30-day trial or anything like that. It's your own personal OutSystems environment for absolutely free and forever. Okay, so go out there and just create your own personal environment and start coding. We also have online training courses available also for free at OutSystems. Check them out at outsystems.com/learn. So that's it. Thank you so much for being here. I hope you have enjoyed this session. Stay tuned for the next few presentations and go build those apps.